They never saw you as a threat when you were on your knees. They never lost sleep when you were drowning in doubt. They never felt uncomfortable when you were bleeding through every mistake, learning in silence, carrying weight no one acknowledged. But the moment you stopped needing their approval, the moment your desperation turned to discipline, the moment you stopped explaining yourself and started executing, that's when everything changed. That's when they realized they didn't just witness someone heal, they watched someone weaponize their pain. Let's be clear about something from the beginning. This isn't for people looking for gentle encouragement. This isn't for the ones who need their hand held through discomfort. This isn't for anyone who thinks transformation happens through wishful thinking and vision boards. This is for the ones who are thrown into the deep end before they learn to swim. The ones who discovered what they were made of because life didn't give them a choice. The ones who had to build armor while still bleeding from the wounds that made it necessary. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to become relentless. You were forged that way. Every time someone said you weren't capable, every opportunity that went to someone less deserving, every night you went to bed knowing tomorrow would demand more than you thought you had to give. You absorbed it all. You carried it. You let it reshape you from the inside out. And somewhere in that process, survival evolved into something far more dangerous. It became hunger. That hunger became obsession. That obsession crystallized into a level of discipline so focused, so uncompromising, that makes comfortable people deeply uncomfortable. Here's what they don't tell you about strength. People celebrate it until it outgrows their expectations. They say, be resilient, be tough, stand your ground. But the instant you stop seeking permission, the instant you stop over-explaining your decisions, the instant you stop dimming yourself to make others feel adequate, they panic. Because strength that doesn't apologize for itself is threatening. Power that doesn't need validation is unpredictable. And you've become both. You didn't choose intensity. Intensity chose you when gentleness became a liability. You learned early that no rescue was coming. No one was going to pause the world's demands because you were tired. No one cared about your capacity, only your output. So you adapted. While others waited for motivation, you moved through resistance. While others made excuses, you made progress. While others slept peacefully, you were rebuilding yourself in the darkness, piece by piece, into something that couldn't be broken again. Not because you loved the grind, because you refused to be a victim of your circumstances. And that refusal, that's what they sense but can't articulate when they're around you now. People think monsters are born. They're wrong. Monsters are manufactured through systematic pressure, built by rejection that should have destroyed you but didn't. Forged in isolation so complete, you had no choice but to become your own salvation. Shaped by nights where quitting made logical sense, but felt spiritually impossible. You were forced to master discipline before you understood comfort. Forced to stand alone before you learned what trust meant. Forced to fight your own weakness before you ever confronted external obstacles. That's why your silence carries weight now. That's why your presence shifts energy in a room. That's why people sense something in you they can't quite name. You're not loud. You're not chaotic. You're not performing toughness. You're controlled. And control frightens people who are still controlled by their emotions. Because a controlled mind doesn't spiral under pressure. A controlled body doesn't quit when pain arrives. A controlled spirit doesn't negotiate with fear or bargain with doubt. It simply adapts, endures, and advances. People want your results without your sacrifices. They want your confidence, minus the suffering that built it. They want your strength without your scars, your focus without your loneliness, your discipline without your pain. But nothing worth having comes that cheaply, and you paid the full price. You paid with comfort, with conventional relationships, with normalcy, with the luxury of being misunderstood. You traded being liked for being respected. You traded being comfortable for being capable. You traded peace for power. And yes, it changed you fundamentally. You don't laugh at the same things anymore. You don't trust easily or quickly. You don't waste words on people who aren't listening. You don't tolerate weakness, especially not in yourself, because you know exactly where weakness leads. You've been there. You crawled out of it. And the world thinks it can judge you for refusing to go back. But here's what they miss. You didn't lose your humanity. You refined it. You didn't become heartless. You became strategic. You didn't turn cold. You turned focused. There's a massive difference. You still feel. You still care deeply. You just don't let emotions hijack the mission anymore. Because you learned through brutal experience that feelings don't build futures. Consistency does. Pain doesn't destroy you. It reveals what you're actually made of. And pressure? Pressure tells the truth. When life squeezed you, you didn't cry for mercy. You didn't fold. You didn't disappear into excuses. You adjusted your stance. You controlled your breathing. And you endured until you could advance. That's why you move differently now. That's why your eyes don't seek approval. That's why your presence fills space without you demanding attention. People sense you've been somewhere dark and returned with something they can't quite identify, but definitely can't ignore. They wanted you strong. They just didn't expect you to become unbreakable. They wanted you confident, but not fearless. They wanted you disciplined, but not relentless. They wanted you powerful, but not more powerful than them. And now that you are, they need a word to make sense of the gap between who they are and who you've become. So they call you a monster. Good, let them. Because monsters don't need approval. Monsters don't crave validation. Monsters don't explain themselves to people who couldn't handle their journey. Monsters execute while others deliberate. Monsters finish what others start and abandon. You don't wake up asking, "How do I feel today?" You wake up asking, "What must be done?" You don't negotiate with discomfort. You don't debate with fear. You don't entertain the excuses your mind generates. You move. You adapt. You overcome every single day. Not because it's easy, because losing is unacceptable, because mediocrity feels like dying slowly, because deep in your core, you know you're capable of more, and living beneath your potential is the only thing more painful than the work required to exceed it. And now you're walking proof that suffering, when channeled correctly, creates something unstoppable. You're not here to be liked. You're not here to fit into boxes others built. You're not here to make anyone comfortable. You're here to win, to dominate your limitations, rewrite what's possible, to become a version of yourself that can't be controlled, can't be stopped, can't be broken. So if they say you've changed, they're absolutely right. You're not weaker. You're not softer. You're not more accommodating. You're sharper, more focused, more dangerous. And if they wanted a monster, let them confront exactly what they created. Because you didn't become this to intimidate anyone. You became this so nothing could ever break you again. The truth they're struggling to understand is this. The moment you stopped caring about being understood is the moment you became truly dangerous. Most people waste entire lifetimes trying to explain themselves, trying to justify their pain, trying to prove their worth to people who weren't paying attention when it mattered. You stopped doing that. you realize something most never do. Explanations are for people still seeking permission. Results speak infinitely louder than words ever could. You learn to let silence do your talking, to let discipline become your language, to let consistency become your reputation. You stopped announcing your plans and started manifesting your results. And that's when the shift happened. That's when life stopped testing you with manageable problems and started throwing real obstacles at your throat. Because the universe only tests those who look capable of surviving the examination. You think the pressure you feel is punishment? It's not. It's recognition. Pressure is life acknowledging you're built for more than comfort. Weak people complain about pressure. Strong people use it to compress themselves into something diamond hard and unbreakable. You didn't shatter when it hit. You adjusted your posture. You lowered your center of gravity. You learned to breathe inside the storm instead of waiting for it to pass. You learned that pain doesn't mean stop. Pain means adjust. Pain means evolve. Pain means you're still alive and fighting. There's a reason you feel different now. You don't panic when plans collapse. You don't flinch when chaos arrives. You don't lose your composure when everything goes wrong simultaneously. You've already survived worse. You've already endured nights where the only thing keeping you conscious was pure refusal to surrender. You've already walked through fires no one witnessed, carried weights that would have crushed others, rebuilt yourself with hands that were still shaking from exhaustion. So when life tries to intimidate you now, it feels almost insulting, like it doesn't know who it's dealing with. You didn't ask for this strength. You were forced into it. And now that you possess it, you guard it like the weapon it is. Kindness without strength is weakness waiting to be exploited. Strength without control is chaos, destroying itself. But strength combined with discipline, that's domination. You don't lash out emotionally. You don't boast unnecessarily. You don't make threats. You wait, you observe, you calculate. You strike only when precision matters. That's why people misjudge you. They mistake your calm for softness, your silence for hesitation, your restraint for fear. They always do until it's too late. Because the most dangerous people don't announce themselves. They don't posture. They don't bark warnings. They move quietly. They train when no one's watching. They sharpen themselves in complete isolation. And when they finally act, there's no warning, no second chance, no room for doubt. You understand now why loneliness followed you. Not because you're broken, but because you outgrew the environment that kept others comfortable. You couldn't breathe in rooms where mediocrity was normalized. You couldn't stay where excuses lived unchallenged. You couldn't laugh at distractions that pulled people away from their potential. So you separated, not from arrogance, but necessity. Because growth requires distance. Evolution demands isolation. And becoming something rare means walking paths most people won't survive. There's a reason your standards are impossibly high. There's a reason you don't tolerate laziness in yourself or others. There's a reason weakness irritates you, viscerally. You've seen what happens when you slip. You've felt the consequences of hesitation. You've lived the cost of comfort. And you decided, never again. You don't chase motivation anymore. You build systems. You constructed discipline. You developed habits that move you forward, even when your mind begs to collapse. That's why your progress looks supernatural to others. That's why they say you're built different. You're not different. You're conditioned. Conditioned to move when it hurts. Conditioned to continue when it's lonely. Conditioned to finish when quitting would be justified. You trained your mind the way warriors train their bodies, through repetition, through pain, through absolute refusal to quit. You learned a brutal lesson early. Talent fades. Emotion fades. Motivation fades. But discipline stays. Discipline shows up. Discipline executes. So you stopped relying on feelings and started relying on principles. You move even when confidence is absent. You train even when readiness feels distant. You show up even when you feel empty. Because you know something others don't. Feeling strong is irrelevant. Being strong is a decision. And decisions don't need emotions, they need commitment. That's why setbacks don't destroy you anymore. They sharpen you. They recalibrate you. They expose weaknesses so you can eliminate them surgically. You don't ask, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this teaching me? How does this make me more capable? And then you adapt. Every loss made you smarter. Every failure made you more focused. Every betrayal made you more selective about who deserves access to your energy. You stopped trusting words. You started trusting patterns. You stopped listening to promises. You started watching actions. That alone put you ahead of 90% of people, because most never learn. They repeat the same mistakes, blame external circumstances, and call it bad luck. You don't believe in luck anymore. You believe in preparation meeting opportunity, and you prepare like your survival depends on it, because it does. You're no longer fighting for validation. You're fighting for legacy. Not legacy as fame, but legacy as identity. The kind where no matter where life drops you, you'll survive, adapt, and rise. Strip everything away. Money, status, comfort, security. And you'll still be dangerous. That's real power. And that's why even now, even after everything you've built, you're still not satisfied. Not because you're ungrateful, because you're not finished. You can feel it. There's another level calling you. Another version of yourself that hasn't been unlocked yet. And deep down, you know exactly what it will cost. More isolation, more sacrifice, more pain, more nights where doubt whispers that you've gone too far, given too much, lost too much. But you don't fear that anymore. You welcome it, because pain is familiar. Struggle is comfortable. War is home. Comfort, that scares you. Comfort is where people decay. Comfort is where potential dies quietly. Comfort is where monsters fall asleep. And you didn't come this far to fall asleep now. So if the world looks at you and sees a monster, good. Let them misunderstand you. Let them fear what they can't comprehend. Let them talk while you work. They weren't there when you were bleeding. They weren't there when you were rebuilding yourself from fragments. They weren't there when you chose discipline over escape. They don't get an opinion now. You earned this version of yourself. You paid for it in full, in blood and sweat and tears and years. And if the road ahead gets darker, if the weight gets heavier, if the fight gets uglier, good. That means you're walking the right path. Because the strongest versions of you were never built in peace. They were forged in war. So here's your choice, and it's the only one that matters. Will you honor what you've become, or will you apologize for it? Will you keep pushing into the discomfort that creates greatness, or will you retreat into the comfort that destroys it? Will you let their fear of your power make you smaller, or will you let it confirm you're on the right path? You know the answer. You've always known. You were built for this, not the easy parts, the impossible parts, the parts that break everyone else. So stop waiting for permission. Stop looking for signs. Stop hoping someone will understand. Move like the monster they created. Execute like the weapon you've become. Finish like the force of nature you were meant to be. because they wanted a monster, and now they have one. The question is, what will you do with that power? Everything you've survived has prepared you for everything that's coming. Trust that. Trust yourself. And whatever you do, don't stop now. The world needs fewer people seeking comfort and more people embracing the fight. Be the latter. Always. Your time is now. Not someday. Now.